Chris Boucher returned to Toronto for the first time since signing with the Celtics. The Raptors rested their starting lineup, but Gradey Dick took over and Jonathan Mogbo hit a game winner. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting meetings right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
With no starters for the Toronto Raptors, Gradey Dick took over offensively and did it in many ways, crashing the offensive glass, getting out in transition, putting his body on the line to draw fouls. And it's worth noting that this is something that Gradey has consistently done. When he drives, he's able to draw fouls because he's willing to put his body on the line. But he also showed you what he could do off of the ball, catching off this pin down and settling into a mid-range jump shot. He took advantage of the three-point shooting tonight, and he did a great job of attacking closeouts. He got Chris Boucher on a really nifty up and under, and his overall finishing at the basket was really nice tonight. He was able to comfortably get to the inside. He had this one really pretty move in transition to finish in traffic, and it was the complete package for what you would want out of Gradey Dick on any night. Not just nights that the starters are resting, as we welcome you into the film room on a Friday night here, Saturday morning for people who might be listening. The Toronto Raptors pull out a win. Jonathan Mogbo hits a game winner. They were down at half by 21 points. I was at that game for the Athletic NBA Daily, filming some things. Had to ask Joe Mazzulla a question. But from the Raptors side of things, this was, look, it's kind of a bummer because this was their preseason opening night, and it was a pretty packed crowd. To have them not experience, Brandon Ingram for the first time and this new look starting lineup for the first time, I imagine it was pretty disappointing, but they got a pretty good game and they were into it. The crowd was into it. The way the team was playing defense, especially Jonathan Mogbo and Chucky Hepburn, who we'll get to in a second, especially in that fourth quarter. Jared Rhoden also, a shout out to him. A lot of these fourth-string guys were putting in some really, really good work defensively, buying into the identity of what the Toronto Raptors and Darko Rajakovic want to do on that end. But it was a fun game to go to if you were a fan, just because of how crazy the ending was and Mogbo hitting the game winner. He also finished with his left. Just want to note that because a scout friend of mine, shout out to Josh Codenera, he mentioned it to me a couple weeks ago that Jonathan Mogbo's left hand is actually his dominant hand, which is something I didn't know, And so he's better finishing left than he is right. Keep an eye on that. Just keep an eye on that because I think that's interesting. He made a couple of left-handed shots today, missed a couple of right-handed shots. I don't know. I will track that throughout the season and get back to you guys. But Mogbo got the game winner. That was awesome. The story of the game for the Raptors, though, really was Gradey Dick having his best performance of the preseason so far. Of course, he's expected to do that in games like this, right? I think the Raptors set it up in a way for him to be the number one focal point offensively and see what he can do with it. He took it and ran with it and was the best player on the Raptors tonight. I think that is something that you should expect from him consistently. Not him being the best player on the Raptors on any given night, but offensively, working off the ball, attacking closeouts, putting his body on the line to draw fouls. And honestly, on the other side, I thought his defense was pretty good. I thought, of course, it's never going to be perfect with Gradey Dick, but I do think his defense was pretty good. I think his defense has actually been good for the last couple of games. Using his hands off ball, the activity was really good too. And overall, I mentioned this in the last recap, but if you can get a certain portion of points on a nightly basis from that shooting guard position and Ochai and Gradey and Jacoby, you're in a pretty good spot offensively because those guys dictate so much of your three-point shooting from your ancillary players. Speaking of those other guys, Ochai Agbaji also started and played 22 minutes, knocked down one three-point shot, scored 8 points. Pretty quiet night from him overall. Jacoby Walter really struggled in this one offensively, and I think that's where you can see the difference between Gradey and Jacoby, right? I thought Jacoby will always be able to provide you with a baseline defensively at the point of attack, right? But he was getting the opportunities that Gradey was getting to create. He was working in pick and rolls. He was attacking closeouts. He was trying to shoot wide open, catch and shoot threes. And it just wasn't his night, truthfully. 0 for 8 in 22 minutes, scored 1 point, and 0 for from the 3-point line. That is truthfully the difference between these two players, right? One, I think you can see consistently can bring it on the offensive end in Gradey Dick, can find a multitude of ways to impact the game offensively, even when his shot isn't hitting, by the way. And that is Gradey Dick. And then on the defensive side, the other side of this is that Jacoby can provide you a baseline defensively, but the offense is a question mark, and how willing he is to knock down his shots, how capable he is of knocking down his shots, that is going to be the big question. We saw him do well against Sacramento, did not have it tonight against the Boston Celtics. It would be cool if they could fusion dance those two players together and have them be a two-way beast, truthfully. We'll see what happens. I think that will be an evolving conversation. That shooting guard spot for the Toronto Raptors will be one of the prevailing storylines for the season. There's not much else to take away from this game other than Colin Murray-Boyles did start. He was in that starting lineup, ended up only playing in 8 minutes, and that was because he hurt his elbow, got pulled from the game, didn't play the rest of the second quarter, and they got an x-ray. Darko Rajakovic told us that the x-rays were all clear. Nothing was seen on the x-rays, and that he was fine. He was ruled out for the rest of the game with an elbow bruise on his right elbow. We will see if there are any updates in practice or in shoot-around on Saturday morning. Maybe you already have an update by the time you're watching this. We'll see if he ends up playing on Sunday. But ultimately, seems like it's not something too serious, and hopefully he's okay. I saw him post-game. Didn't seem like he was holding his elbow or anything like that. So should be okay on the Colin Murray-Boyles front. Want to talk about some of these other guys, the fourth-string guys who really brought it for this Raptors team and helped them win this game. I mean, we talked about Mogbo. I think Mogbo is more than a fourth-string guy. He's probably a third-string guy. He started the first couple games with Jakob Poeltl out. He provides so much for them defensively and caused so many turnovers in that fourth quarter. I mean, between him and Chucky Hepburn, it was like watching two piranhas, or I guess, I don't know, what is a group of piranhas called? Piranha? You know what? This is stupid. We're skipping through this. Regardless, two piranhas when something jumps in the water, That's how it felt watching Jonathan Mogbo and Chucky Hepburn. Let's talk about Chucky Hepburn, though, because we haven't had a chance to talk about him yet. He played 28 minutes tonight, which I believe is the most on the team for tonight. Scored 13 points, 4 of 11 from the field, 8 assists, 4 steals, and truthfully, there were way more steals than that. They must have not tracked it properly, but it was good to see. So look, offensively, that is the main question for Chucky Hepburn moving forward, how much utility he has on the offensive end. But I do think his pacing in the pick and roll was pretty good tonight, especially at finding shooters, just really seeing and reading the defense to figure out where he can find shooters within the flow of the offense, especially out of pick and rolls. This is something that he's used to from his Louisville days, and I'm glad that this is tracking at least against similar levels of competition. And how much can he impact the game offensively as a scorer? He had this nice drive, little in and out dribble finish in the fourth quarter that helped the Raptors cut the lead. He had a nice catch and shoot three as well late that made it a 3-point game and knocked down that three. I think that is a huge swing factor for Chucky Hepburn if he can knock down threes consistently. But his bread and butter, folks, is how much of a maniac he is on the defensive end. He jumps at everything, and his hands are so incredibly active. He just knows to kind of telegraph passes. He understands where players like to put the ball. Even when they're dribbling, he's great at telegraphing where the ball is about to bounce, and he finds a way of just getting his hand in there. He just knows how to stay active, and I think that is a true calling card of an elite point of attack defender, an understanding of where a player is going to put the ball. I don't know what Chucky Hepburn's role is on this Toronto Raptors team this season. I think he's signed to a 2-way contract. I believe that he is going to play a lot of minutes for the Raptors 905. I mentioned, AJ Lawson. We'll see if AJ Lawson ends up playing for the 905 this year. He might have opportunity elsewhere. But I ultimately think Chucky is going to spend a lot of time with the 905. I think he is developmentally excellent for a guy like Ulrich Shamshay, because Chucky, from what I remember in Summer League and from what I remember in the preseason, is pretty good at throwing lobs. And I think that will help Shamshay when it comes to pick and roll pacing. And I just alluded to some of the pick and roll pacing that Chucky has. I think that will help Ulrich in the long run to have a guy who can set him up like that. So Chucky will probably play a lot of 905 minutes. May he get opportunity with the Raptors? I guess it depends on how this season goes. I think Jamal Shed is pretty locked in as backup point guard. Shed, by the way, had a decent game as well. He had 5 assists, 8 points. Pretty quiet night, but I thought he was good defensively. Again, the competition they were facing was not the greatest. Jaylen Brown didn't play for the Celtics. Obviously, Jason Tatum is out. Derek White didn't play. Sam Hauser didn't play. It was mostly the Peyton Pritchard, Chris Boucher, and Anthony Simons show. And shout out to Chris, all-time role player for the Toronto Raptors. Obviously is beloved. And I think it's very cool that he got an opportunity to come here and to hoop against the Raptors in the way that he did. He was balling out. A very Chris Boucher type of game for those who are very familiar and have watched him over the years. Just was able to do a little bit of everything. Shot the ball really well, which is very cool. I don't got much else for you guys, folks. We will wait until Sunday. Sunday's recap will be something else. For those who are going to enjoy this, I believe it's a long weekend. If it is a long weekend, I don't know, to be honest with you. I have no concept of long weekends or not, because my work schedule doesn't revolve around long weekends. But if it is a long weekend, I think it is. Enjoy it with your families. Have a great weekend. We'll get back to Raptors basketball on Sunday. Only a few more preseason games left until it's the real deal, folks. And hopefully we get to see the Toronto Raptors and the starting lineup at least once. Can we just do it at least once? One single time before the regular season. Just once. Give me something to talk about. Thank you very much for tapping into Raptors Republic. We appreciate you guys as always. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to get this out to other folks out there. For the audio listeners, shout out to y'all for tapping in on the audio side. Give us a 5-star rating if you can. Appreciate you for listening to the Film Room. Peace out.